we're going to slow
Get out into the
things
mountains.
way down, get out in the mountains, and get kind of rural. Get back into a van. It's been a few years since we've been in a proper camper van since we went to Iceland. So
Yeah.
we're excited. Woo.
Campervanning has definitely become a style of travel that we really enjoy doing whenever we get the opportunity. Our first experience was in Iceland, and while some things could have gone better then, it really just hooked us, and now we love doing it. We used our experience in Iceland to make our time in Switzerland just that much better, but there was still just so much to learn about renting and driving a camper van in Switzerland. So here are a couple things that we learned. First off, there's just a bunch of companies in Europe that you can rent a camper van from. We chose Road Surfer because their reputation was good, they had great reviews, and they offered amenities that we found important. And the fact that they were running a sale at the time, that helps too. But there are plenty of other companies too. You've got Indie Campers, Anywhere Campers, even McRent, just to name a couple. Do your research and check reviews to make sure that the daily rate is going to be worth it to you. Speaking of the daily rate, let's go ahead and talk about what makes up the price of renting a camper van in Switzerland. The first thing you're going to notice is the rate that's listed on the website. This is basically just what you're going to pay for the pleasure of driving the van around. Sometimes it might include insurance or extras, but that's not very typical, so don't expect that. This price also fluctuates based on how big you want the van to be and things like seasonality and demand. Second thing you're going to want to consider is insurance. Different companies offer different coverages for insurance, and it's important to know what is and isn't covered. Now, I can already hear what you're saying.
James, my credit card offers rental car insurance. Can't I just decline what the company is offering me?
Maybe. Some credit cards just flat out don't cover RVs. If yours does and you're comfortable with the just basic level of collision damage coverage, look into what that entails, and by all means, if you're comfortable with that, decline what the rental company is offering. However, I would encourage you to look into full coverage from the rental company. This covers not just driving accidents, but it also covers damage that arise from non-driving situations. Finally, you're going to need to think about optional extras and amenities that you want the van to come with. Very rarely does the price include things like bedding or a cooking set. Those things are almost always added separately, so you need to consider those when you're thinking about the price. Now, those are the main things that are going to affect what you pay to the rental company. But there's a bunch of other stuff that you need to consider when you're thinking about the overall cost of a van trip like this. Of course, a vehicle needs fuel to run. In our experience, most of the vans we came across ran on diesel, but there were a few gasoline-powered ones too. Switzerland is a pretty small country with a pretty decent infrastructure, so if you wanted to go full electric, I think that's also a doable option. If you end up with a diesel van, your vehicle will come with a second tank of something called AdBlue. This is a fuel additive that's supposed to reduce diesel emissions. Our van used it so sparingly that I don't even think we saw on the gauge that any got used. And when we topped it off before we returned the van, it only cost us about 80 US cents to fill it up. You'll also need something called a vignette if you plan on driving on any of the motorways in Switzerland, which we'll talk about in just a minute. Any van that you rent in Switzerland should come with one of these, but any van rented from outside of Switzerland, maybe it will, maybe it won't. Always check to see if the van has one. It looks like this. Maybe you'll get lucky and the person who rented the van before you already bought one, but if not, you'll need to buy one. They cost 40 Swiss francs. You should be able to buy them at any border crossing and at most petrol stations and post offices in Switzerland. Now let's talk about driving in Switzerland. Honestly, it's not that different from driving in the US. If you've driven in any other European country before, you've got nothing to worry about. And if you haven't driven in a European country before, you've also got nothing to worry about, because you got me. It's hard to talk about driving while we're sitting here in a set, so let's go for a ride. Like I mentioned earlier, driving in Switzerland is a lot like driving in the United States. You drive on the right side of the road, red means stop, green means go. However, there are a couple differences that you do need to be aware of. Let's go. One of the first differences you'll come across is going to be the traffic lights. They're honestly not that different. Like I said, red means stop, green means go. Just before the light turns green, it'll show the red and the yellow light for just a second or so. Then this is just an indication to let you know that the light is about to turn green. Now you're going to come across quite a few roundabouts while you're honestly anywhere in Europe, and that's no exception in Switzerland. Get to know them, make friends with them. In our experience, all the exits were really well marked. We didn't get lost at all. And if you're using a GPS or Google Maps or anything like that, just follow that. It won't lead you astray. Something else to note, and this is really important, your headlights have to be on at all times when you're driving. Most newer vehicles should do this automatically, but you should check just to make sure they actually are. And if they're not, make sure you're turning them on every time you get in the car. Now, remember that vignette we talked about earlier? You're gonna need that to drive on any of the motorways in Switzerland. Just as a frame of reference, if you see this sign on any of the roads you're driving on, that means that a vignette is required to drive on it. Also, if you're using a program like Google Maps, make sure you deselect the option that says avoid tolls. If you leave that option selected, it'll actually avoid any of the roads where you have to have a vignette to be on. We might have found that out the hard way.
We all would avoid tolls. I mean, what if I uncheck that? Does it matter? Absolutely it does!
At the roundabout.
Whoops. Now, some of the traffic signs in Switzerland look exactly the same as they do here, though many of them are different. In my experience, a lot of the most important ones were pretty easy to figure out. Now remember that a good portion of this country is covered by the Alps, which means windy, narrow roads going uphill or downhill. So when you're driving a big vehicle, keep that in mind. Why don't we head inside and finish up talking about campervanning in Switzerland? Well, folks, unfortunately, the last part of this video that I recorded had terrible audio issues. So this is take 2. And yes, I did get a haircut. Thank you so much for noticing. Now, there's no wild camping in Switzerland. That means you can't just pull your van off on the side of the road and sleep wherever you are. However, there are basically RV parking lots all over the country where you can pay a small fee to park up and stay overnight. This can be an economical way to spend a night if you just need to get some rest somewhere. There's also no shortage of campgrounds all over Switzerland, with a wide variety of amenities and offerings. Places like this usually have bathrooms and showers, and even offer electricity, but that usually costs just a little bit extra. On our trip, we stayed at 2 of the campgrounds owned by TCS, which is basically like AAA. A quaint little farm in the hills, an amazing cash-only place nestled in the Alps just outside of Zermatt, and a busy, bustling campground on the outskirts of Grindelwald. We'll be sure to leave links to all of these places down in the description. So, in a nutshell, that was our experience in a camper van in Switzerland. If you're still here, we appreciate you sticking around, and we hope you found this information useful. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to our channel. That really would just make our day. Have you ever had an amazing trip in a camper van? It doesn't have to have been in Switzerland. It could be anywhere. Let us know all about it in the comments down below, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for getting away with the maze.